Well, folks, it's that time again. Time for another Disney Channel original movie. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video I'm joined by Ryan of RWR Reviews as we're going to be talking about Cadet Kelly. Directed by Larry Shaw and written by Gail Parent and Michael Walsh, this film stars people like Hilary, Duff, Christy, Carlson, Romano, Gary Cole, Shawn, Ashmore, Linda Cash, Nigel Hammer, and many more. Yes. It's once again time to talk about another Disney Channel original movie, and as I just mentioned, I'm joined today by Ryan of RWR Reviews. We're going to be hearing his thoughts in just a little bit, but a big thanks to him for joining me here in yet another video. First time since we did our collab recently where we did a live stream, and then we also did X-Men, the original X-Men film, together here on the channel. But today we're talking about Cadet Kelly, a Disney Channel original movie that I grew up watching many times that came out in 2002. Now, if you're somewhat new to the channel, you're probably wondering why I'm covering this random Disney Channel original movie. Well, over the course of the last few years as I've had this channel, I've made it a point to slowly go back and cover films from my childhood, most notably the Disney Channel original movies that I grew up watching, and a lot of them have been a lot of fun to go back and revisit, even if it's a bad movie. A lot of times there's still nostalgic fun in the air when I'm rewatching these movies, especially since I'm usually revisiting them with my fiance, who also grew up with these movies. And sometimes I have a guest that joins me, like Ryan today, who did see this movie back in the day himself, and other times I have somebody join me who has never seen a single Disney Channel original movie, which usually makes for a lot of fun. I definitely recommend you go and check out those videos. I have a playlist here on the channel for all my Disney movies that I've covered, including the Disney Channel original movies. But let's get into this. Cadet Kelly follows Hilary Duff's character, Kelly, who, when we first meet her, is in kind of like a free-flowing school where they're outside, they don't really do math, and I don't really understand fully what this school is that she's attending, but she's in a bit of a school that allows her to be a free spirit. She's preppy, they live in New York City, she has a bunch of friends, and she's just living her life how she wants to. She tells her parents how it is, and she's, for the most part, kind of stuck up, but not in a way where it ever makes you feel like you don't like the character, but she clearly only sees things from her perspective for the most part. Not long into the film, we find out that her mother is getting married to somebody that she's been seeing for a little bit, who's actually the commandant of a military school, and because of this, they're moving to the military school. They're going to be living on campus, and Kelly's now being forced to actually be somebody who's attending this military school herself. So she goes from living this very free, cushy life to now having to be a part of this military school and learn all the strict rules that come with that world. Not long after being there, she ends up meeting Christy, Carlson, Romano's character, of course, of Even Stevens fame, with obviously Hilary Duff having the Lizzie McGuire fame of the time. And Christy Carlson Romano is the antagonist of this film. She's the leader of the troop that Kelly is a part of, and over the course of the film, she gives her a really hard time. But one of the most notable reasons for that, outside of a couple of disagreements over the course of the film, is the hunk of this film, the man that they're going after, and that is played by Shawn Ashmore. And I completely forgot that Shawn Ashmore was even in this movie, because just around this time, he had been showing up in the X-Men films, and of course, he hadn't become the bigger actor that he is today, but it's kind of hilarious to know that X-Men came out and then he was in this. It's really crazy as an actor how you can be in something like X-Men, even in a brief role, which of course became a bigger role with the second X-Men film, but then he's in this random Disney Channel original movie around the same time. And I will start this off by saying one of the strangest things about this film is that Hilary Duff is a teenager in this film. Not only the character, but she was in fact a teenager when playing this role, which you can tell. And Shawn Ashmore is kind of like the love interest. They never have a love moment, but both her and Christy Carlson Romano's character are going after this guy and trying to chase his attention the entire movie. And he was in his early 20s when filming this film, which only just makes it really strange because there are some pretty flirtatious moments over the course of the film between both Hilary Duff's character and Shawn Ashmore's character, and it's just a little bit strange. There's even a sequence where he teaches her how to shine shoes and tells her that she should spit on shoes, and later on in the film, when she's shining shoes and he shows up again, she stops him and asks him to donate a little bit of his spit to her so that she can shine the shoes. Of course, he just spits on the shoes, but it is a strange moment, to say the least. Amidst all this, the mother ends up getting pregnant by the new stepfather. She wants to support her mom. She wants to support her marriage. She wants to support the baby that's on the way. She has a great relationship with her father, who, even though her parents are divorced, they have a pretty solid relationship as well. And now she has this new stepfather who's, you know, very military school. He's very rigid, he's kind of stiff, and she wants to kind of help to unfurl him, if you will, over the course of the film and make him feel more comfortable, make him feel more like a father, not only for the baby that's coming soon, but also for her. And so in doing that, she decides to work hard to kind of become somebody stronger and to start to become somebody who can handle all this military school stuff, even though she is this preppy girl with a very cushy life, having come into this world and thinks that she can change the rules in the military school environment. That's the base premise of the film, and I do have my positives and negatives I want to talk about, but before I do that, let me go ahead and throw it on over to Ryan of RWR Reviews, and we'll get back to my thoughts in just a moment.
Hey everyone, this is Reviews of Ryan. If you don't know me, I run a movie channel called RWR Movie Reviews, and I want to thank Anthony A. Perez for inviting me on to do a collaboration with Cadet Kelly. We did do a collaboration a little while back for X-Men, so I'm glad to be back on the channel. And in this film, you have Hilary, Duff, and Christy, Carlson, Romano. And I did watch a lot of Disney growing up. I did watch a lot of original Disney movies. So when Anthony invited me on to do this collab, I was game to do it because I watched a lot of these movies growing up. Now I have watched bits and pieces of this movie in the past, so I knew a little bit about this movie and just the acting and how it was going to go. I did watch Lizzie McGuire growing up, and I did watch Even Stevens as well. So you have Kelly here, who is going to a military school. Before she goes to this military school, you know that she's a very creative person. She has a lot of individual personality about her. And when she has to relocate and go to this school, it's really out of her element. And when she gets to this school, she has Jennifer, played by Christy Carlson Romano. She's very uptight, and she calls her a maggot. She's very abusive. She rips her blanket, and you can really tell that they're very much opposites. And of course, she is trying to play pranks on her in this movie, and really it just kind of goes between the difference between her as trying to change Jennifer and Jennifer trying to change Kelly as well and make her one of this troop. And part of that is Kelly doing hard work in here by spinning a gun. This actually makes her have some attentive to actually learning something and actually having some hard work. This also goes without saying when she does this obstacle course. And in this obstacle course, she's really bad at it. She has trouble really getting through it, and eventually she has to keep doing it over and over and over again. And there even is a point where she's doing it out in the rain and she's all muddy, and that is a lot of hard work for her. And she also has the duty of being the equipment manager and polishing shoes for all the other people as well. So she does have to go through a lot of hurdles and actually learn what the value of hard work is. And I did like that message in here because she comes from a family where she really doesn't seem like she has to do a whole lot. Kelly wants to change the school rules and not follow the strict standards that they have for this school. And she just needs to really learn to respect her leader by saluting her leader and just following what the school standards are. And that's where she really has trouble really fitting in. And of course, she tries to have other friends and meet other people and try to get them on board to try to change the rules of the school. And that's just not the way it works. And in this film, she really has to find her identity at this school because it's a very strict school and they have strict standards, and she can't really be changing the rules, and she just has to learn to adapt to her new lifestyle and of course be the best that she can be, but at the same time respecting her leaders and doing what she is told. In a sense, I do feel sorry in a way for Kelly's character because throughout this film she is trying to find that validation. She needs that validation from her stepfather. And of course, her father isn't really around. Not having that father figure is a big thing for a young teenage girl to go through throughout life. So she's really having trouble kind of going through the ropes, and even though she seems like a really happy-go-lucky kind of person, she really needs that support as well. So throughout this film, she's looking for a lot of validation, and I think that she needs that validation to really progress in life and really feel like she's one of this whole troop that she's in, especially when she's trying to accomplish spinning these rifles and trying to accomplish other tasks that she's not normally into what she normally would do. So that's kind of the biggest thing that she kind of goes through, and the trials and tribulations that she goes through. As far as the acting for this film, it's all right. I wouldn't say like there's any standout performances. I think if you've watched a lot of Disney Channel original movies, you kind of know what you're getting. You'll get some cheesy dialogue here and there. This isn't a movie that I would say is a great movie, but it's a passable movie, and I can say that after watching this film, it's an okay movie. Would I revisit it again? Maybe so down the road. It's not anything that I would rush to go watch again, but I didn't absolutely hate watching this movie, and at least I know some of the actors and actresses in this film, so I at least have some sort of connection going into this film. And maybe if you didn't really grow up really watching either of these characters in any kind of TV shows, or didn't know who they were, or you didn't really watch a lot of Disney Channel kind of movies growing up, this may be not for you. I know that it was filmed at an actual military school in Canada, and I feel like the portrayal of military school in here probably isn't very exact. It probably does involve some movie magic. I don't think a military school is probably ran like this at all. So if I'm looking at negatives for this film, I would say that that would be definitely one that is easily be able to point out. And I can see in this movie that some parents, they may not feel like the way that Hilary Duff actually talks in this film, as she can kind of constantly talk back. However, on the retrospect of that subject, I think that this role model Hilary Duff is trying to portray to little girls, I think that her character here, it does actually have a positive message to it, and I think that her character having the creativity and the individualism that she has in this film, I think that she's a really good role model for little girls here. And, you know, if you're a 12-year-old little girl or 11-year-old girl watching this kind of film, I think that you could really get attached to her character. So I would say in retrospect that she is a pretty solid character. But I also think that in some of this film, a lot of the characters are one-dimensional, and you're not going to get too much character development for the most part. For the most part, the characters kind of stay the same throughout the film. And, you know, you get a little bit of development as far as, you know, change. And if you've watched any kind of Disney movie, you know that there is going to be kind of small little changes throughout the film. And that's really what this film kind of delivers. But I would give the score of this film a 2.5 out of 5. And back to Anthony, let everybody know, what did you think about Cadet Kelly?
A big thanks to Ryan for joining me here in this video. Always a pleasure to have you here on the channel, my friend, and I look forward to having you on once again. Loved hearing your thoughts on the movie, and it's always nice to know that I can recommend one of these movies for a revisit to somebody who's already got some sort of nostalgia for it. As usual, guys, you can find the links to any of my guests down below in the description box. Go give Ryan some love, let him know I sent you. And without further ado, let's get into my final thoughts on the movie, or my positives and negatives, I should say. For the most part, I'll go ahead and start this off by saying that I enjoyed myself. I had a good time going back and revisiting the film. Overall, I think it's a fairly middle-of-the-road film. There are positives, there are negatives. It's cheesy, and it is completely layered with specifically the Disney Channel original movie cheese. There are so many elements in the dialogue and the editing and the way certain things are filmed, the music choices, the acting, whatever the case may be, that are not great. And I think if you're somebody who has no nostalgia for this era of Disney Channel original movies, or for this film, you'd watch this film and probably roll your eyes at a lot of parts. But as somebody who grew up with this, as somebody who has nostalgia for it, I definitely enjoyed myself revisiting it. It is cheesy, it's cringy at times, but my fiance and I had a laugh going back and revisiting this film. On an objective level, what works here, right? I think Hilary Duff is an endearing character. For the most part, she can be fairly annoying over the course of the film, but she means well for the most part, and once she decides to put some drive behind her words and actually tries to become a better stepdaughter for her new stepfather and wants to help her mother and not make the situation far worse, she does become a little bit more of a likable teen character, whereas she easily could have been the character who was just bitching and moaning the entire movie about the fact that she's in a military school. And while there is a percentage of this film that does have that, at a certain point she does decide to kind of step up and tries to embrace this new world, and I think it makes her a fairly endearing character over the course of the movie. Christy Carlson Romano is definitely a solid antagonist in this film. You can tell she was having fun in the role. She was really good at playing the mean girl role at this time, of course, like I mentioned earlier, most notably for playing the sister in Even Stevens, where she was also a bit of a brute character. Not too much, she could be very likable in that show, but there were plenty of times that she played the mean sister or the sister who gets angry very fast, and so I think that she plays that role well here as well. Shawn Ashmore, I think, gives a solid performance, but he's just the, good-looking guy of the time that all the girls are looking at, that smiles over the course of the movie and says a couple of lines, but really doesn't have an abundance of story time. So he's just kind of relegated to that role specifically for the girls to kind of goggle at. Some of the big negatives about this movie, as I mentioned before, are the cheesy dialogue, which at times in this film is just unbearable with just how bad the dialogue is. Some of the moments between characters are just so strange. I mentioned earlier there's that weird scene where Hilary Duff's character literally stops Shawn Ashmore's character to ask for some of his spit when she is shining some boots. And in that same sequence, she even asks him to pat her head, which is strange. She kind of pets her, and she does it to kind of make Christy Carlson Romano's character jealous. And it's moments like this that this film is layered with really cheesy, cringy moments that are so of their time that do not hold up in any way, shape, or form. And beyond that, this film is, a young girl empowerment movie, and in a lot of ways, I could see how that would work for a lot of people, but in so many other ways, it's just so cheesy and dated. There's this song that plays over the course of the film that's called, I think, One Girl Revolution. That's pretty cheesy throughout the course of the film. At the very end of the film, when Hilary Duff's character and Christy Carlson Romano's character kind of come together for this competition that they're doing at the very end, they're using flags and doing this little cringy dance with some really over-the-top editing that kind of ruins the whole sequence, and they have this One Girl Revolution song playing over it. And it's just so funny. It's just so cheesy. You can't help but laugh at how ridiculous this movie is, how ridiculous it sounds, how ridiculous it's acted. And there's so many moments that just kind of feel random too, with the most random moment being that her father is a photographer. We meet him at the very beginning of the film. We know that he goes places and photographs things and goes and spend times with natives in different places, and he's kind of like a wildlife photographer. At least that's what they set him up to be. Near the end of the film, we find out that her father plans on coming to her big performance at the end of this military school year, this big competition that she's been working towards with the crew that she's a part of. And when he doesn't arrive at this event, Kelly starts to assume something bad happened to him where he said he was going to be, where he was going to be doing photography. So her and her stepfather decide to just hop in the car mid-competition, and they go and find her father having fallen off the side of a cliff, and there's a whole moment where she has to use what she's learned at military school to get down there to her father. Her father should have been dead with how steep the fall is, and it's just such a random moment. The movie goes from being this, fun military school, kind of like high school, silly Disney Channel original movie, to a quick moment where it's like, my father is possibly dead, and her dad hasn't really been in the movie much, so moments like that kind of made me laugh over the course of the film. But for the most part, I enjoyed myself revisiting this film. Is it a good movie? Some will probably say yes, if you're super nostalgic for it, if this was one of your Disney Channel original movies that was maybe a favorite. But going back and revisiting it, I think there's far more about it, unfortunately, that doesn't hold up and doesn't work. And any of the enjoyment I had out of it was more ironically just kind of funny. I thought a lot of it was just so cheesy and so cringe that I just couldn't help but have a laugh at how ridiculous some of these moments were, how ridiculous some of the line delivery was, how cheesy some of the music that was just behind any sequence was. There's just so many moments in this movie that made me cringe, but in a very fun way. My fiance and I were having a laugh at this movie and revisiting it. And when it was over, it was like, that was fun. It was nice to go back and revisit it. It's not one of those Disney Channel original movies that I've gone back and revisited and thought, oh yeah, that was a lot better than I remember, or it was just as good as I remember. I've covered things like the Halloween Town movies here, and I really enjoy the first two Halloween Towns. I think they're a lot of fun. I think they're very nostalgic and cheesy for me, of course, but at the same time, there's a charm to those films from that era that I think they knew what they were. They had good music, they had good casting, and they were fun. And when it comes to films like Cadet Kelly, I don't think they hit the mark as well as something like Halloween Town, where it can be as timeless. It's a cheesy young female empowerment movie that has this silly premise that has really goofy elements, but for the most part, I think knows what it is and has fun with it. And as somebody who's nostalgic for that era and nostalgic for this movie, there was enjoyment to be had. I can't see myself revisiting this film anytime soon. Once again, it had already been about 15 years since I could say that I I've even watched this movie. But now all these years later, I can say that it was nice to revisit this film, to cover it here on the channel. Again, not sure I'm going to be revisiting it any other time soon. A big thanks to my buddy Ryan of RWR Reviews for joining me here in this video. As usual, you guys can find the link to any of my guests down below in the description box. So once again, go give Ryan some love, let him know I sent you, and I'd love to hear what other Disney Channel original movies you guys would like to hear me cover down below in the comments. There's still plenty that I haven't tackled, but for anybody who's interested, I have covered all the Halloween Town films. I've covered films like Luck of the Irish, Up and Away, Brink, The Phantom of the Megaplex, and so many others. Again, you can find a link to my Disney playlist here on the channel as well. I'll put that down in the description box as well if you guys are interested. A big thanks to you guys for watching. Hit that like button, comment your thoughts on Cadet Kelly or whatever you want to talk about, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.